Hello Ram fan, my name is Jeff Garner and welcome to the 2017 season of Inside Cleveland Rams Football with head coach Scott Riley. Each week, just as we did last season, we'll be talking about everything related to Rams football. We'll chat about past week's games, upcoming opponents. We'll have some inside interviews with coaches and players, and so we're definitely looking forward to the new 2017 season. But before we get into that, we got to introduce the man of the hour, the head coach of the Cleveland Rams, Mr. Scott Riley. Scott, glad to have you. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
I can't tell you how happy I am to have you again here. I know you are a busy man. Every time I come in here, you're going 100 miles an hour, but I appreciate you sitting down with us as you do each week. Talking to the Ram fam and talking about Cleveland Rams football. It's just an honor to be with you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
All right, well, Coach, there's a lot of new, there's a lot of old that I kind of want to talk about here in this version of Inside Cleveland Rams football heading to the season. But before we get into those specifics, I want to begin the actual week with you. This makes your fourth season at the helm of the Cleveland Rams. How does it feel to be heading into number 4 as the prior 3?
Well, you know, obviously there's a big difference between the first year and the second year because you have more in place and you're ready to go. And, you know, at that point you're always learning something, but it's not all that different. The biggest thing is you're only good as your assistants, and we've added a couple assistant coaches this year, and I feel it's one of the best staffs we've had here at Cleveland. So it's going to make my job a lot easier in that regards as well.
Well, that's a great segue, because that's again what I wanted to talk about a little bit. You know, you've had the luxury of a fantastic coaching staff up to this point, and keeping them in place. I know that's kind of tough sometimes. You know, people move around and that kind of thing, but you know, you've kept your staff, but you've also added a couple too. Can you talk about those a little bit?
Yeah, we've only lost a couple coaches over the years, but we're able to add TU's. He's going to be our running back coach. He also helps out the receivers from time to time, but mostly focused with those running backs. He comes from Connecticut, moved down here with his family and got a job in the area. He's actually coming off 2 straight state championships in Connecticut as the offensive coordinator. So we're hoping he can make it 3 straight.
That'd be nice.
Told the kids that's their goal, is to keep his streak
alive. Yes.
But he's been an excellent addition to us to this year, and really helped the offensive staff, and allows Coach Capps, who's been coaching the running backs and the quarterbacks, to focus more on the quarterbacks and coordinating the offense. And then we also added Andre Jacobs. He came to us in his 6th year coaching, 3 at Middle Creek and 2 at Richmond, and he'll be here this year, obviously. But great coach, obviously, being at Middle Creek and then Richmond. He knows what it takes to win football games.
I didn't realize Middle Creek. I knew Richmond, but for some reason I didn't know Middle Creek. So
yeah,
there you
he
go.
started with Middle Creek and then moved with Coach Castellano down to Richmond when he moved down there. And great coach. He was a great player. Played at Coastal Carolina. Was actually, he's a defensive player of the year, I think 1 or 2 years down there.
Awesome.
And he was on the same team with Josh Norman, so he was the defensive player of the year, not Josh Norman, for you Panthers fans.
There you go.
So a great player and a great coach, and he's done a great job connecting with the players, and he's one of those got a motor.
Absolutely does. I've had the opportunity to speak with those guys a little bit. Again, I haven't gotten to know them that great yet or whatever, but I mean fired up. Yeah,
they're ready. He's our defensive coordinator and our linebacker coach. So taking a little bit off my plate in that regard. So he's been a great addition as well.
It's been great talking to him. I know asking him, and I said, well, how'd you hear about Cleveland and how, those kind of things. And the good news is, I think the great news is, I mean, we're well known out there. I don't mean that from a cocky standpoint or whatever, but I mean it from a character standpoint, a good program, a clean program, just high quality folks. And those are the kind of things, when I talked to those guys, that's the first thing they started talking to me about. It wasn't necessarily talent. It wasn't necessarily the football X's and O's, even though, that's good to hear as well, obviously. But it was more of the program, where the program's going, how it's built itself. They just want to be a part of it. So that struck me as, hey, that's the kind of people we need, Well, from a player standpoint, just like with every season, there's losses to the team when a set of seniors graduate. But the flip side of that is new faces. New players coming on board, whether it be freshmen coming in, whether it be JV players making a step up to the varsity, all kinds of things. But how do you feel about the new faces? I know we can't go into each one or anything like that, but how do you feel about the new faces putting on that Rams logo this season?
Good. Obviously, very excited about the team we're going to put on the field. Last year was the smallest senior class we've ever had, so it led to some struggles last year, right. With depth and things like that. But it also gained a lot of experience. Mm-hmm. So we have another small senior class this year, and then after that, I think things have kind of repaired themselves, if you will, right. Where we have about 30, 35 people a class. But we'll have another small class this year, so. But a big junior class, and a lot of those juniors you'll be familiar with. They played a lot last year, right. Sophomores, and we'll have a pretty big group, about 6 players that are sophomores that will be playing significant minutes or not starting. So, with Jaquez Durham, Corn Artist, Wesley King, Ethan Hildreth, Dakota Marquez, and Darius Ocean. They're all looking. We haven't played our first game yet, but looking
right.
to start as sophomores. So, good young blood coming through, and a lot of talent with those classes.
Speaking of a few of those seniors, and again, you've already mentioned a couple of players that I think are going to take these places, but last year we had a couple big contributors that exited for us. Again, we're proud of those guys. They've moved up and out. Your starting QB, Caden Norman, record-setting wide receiver Jake Scott, and obviously the big man in the middle, the center position, Landon Clifton. Defensive side of the ball, guys like TJ Nauman, Noah Barnes, Tevin Sanders, to name a few. Those guys left some pretty big shoes to fill, both on the from the statistical standpoint, but also they were big in leadership roles in the locker room. How do you feel about replacing those guys?
That's high school football, college football, I guess, as well. People move on. You have to have a plan in place to going forward. From the defensive side of things, all those guys, all those seniors, at some point, because we had such a rash of injuries, missed games right. Last year, so we felt life. It was hard at the time yeah. without them at points.
Couple of points, yeah.
But it allowed some younger guys to come up. Dakota, who's a sophomore, actually had to start a playoff game last year when Tevin pulled his hamstring. So those guys have a lot of experience coming in. So they're going to be younger, but they're experienced and younger, which is a good thing. So we're going to get them for a couple of years. Get a lot of action out of them.
Got the green out of them, so to speak.
And then on the offensive side of the ball, fortunately, we didn't play a game without Caden or Jacob last year, or Landon. They all stayed healthy, and they're very productive. And I don't think you can't replace Jacob Scott's production with one player. We're not going to have another guy get 2,000 yards receiving. But we'll have a good complement of guys to share that load, and we plan on being able to have the same overall team statistics. It might just not be as loaded to one person as it has been that last year. Keep going forward. We'll have some young players in those positions, but they've come along really well early in the year, and we just can't ask too much of them early, sure. And they'll learn.
And it can't be expected, like you said, to be setting those record-setting numbers kind of thing. I mean, it'd be great and something to aspire to, obviously. But as I agree, I've seen a lot of spreading of the wealth, so to speak, so far. So
last year at this point last year we had a sophomore getting ready to start at tailback, and Tyson Dew.
Yes.
And early in the year, we didn't give him as many carries, and he kind of worked his way into the offense. And then by the end of the year, he's averaging 11 yards a carry, and with 1,400 yards. But not many of them were in the first 4 games or so. Right. So now we're breaking in a sophomore quarterback. So you might see a little more Tyson Dew, and he carrying the load early,
and he's bulked up. He's I don't know numbers, but I was watching him in the scrimmages, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. But he's solid. He seems like he's up, and
all the kids. It's probably one of the best springs we've had. Spring semesters in the weight room, and all the kids have a little bit more meat on them than they did last year.
Well, Coach, probably the biggest story, at least I think, from the upcoming season is that the conferences have been redesigned, as the Ram fan, I'm sure you know, heading into 2017 season. And the Rams the former Two Rivers 3A conference members are now part of the Greater Neuse. Isn't it the Greater Neuse?
It's the Greater Neuse.
Yes, that's right. I wanted to confirm that. There's some old foes from the former conference, but there's a few new teams who will be playing as well. And so, what stands out at you regarding the new conference makeup?
We're excited about it. I think it's mostly Johnson County. There's 3 Johnson County schools that aren't in it because they're not in 3A, but all the 3A schools in Johnson County are all together. That's 5 of the 6 teams, and then East Wake. So I think it'll be a lot of fun for the kids. A lot of those big rivalry games we had early in the year with Clayton and West Johnson. Now they're at the end of the year, and they mean even more than they did before, which is hard to believe. So as a program, those are the 2 type of games we really put a lot of emphasis on in the regular season are county games and conference games. So we're kind of combining those 2 passions, and we've had a lot of success with both those. And in the county, we're 23-5 as a program, and 27-3 in conference. So we get to combine those two passions of ours into one thing, county and conference games. So it'll be exciting.
I think it will. I mean, like I said, bringing the JoCo teams together again. It's always been a big rivalry, but now it adds it even more. Being conference, that kind of thing. So I agree, but that's the conference teams that we'll be going up against. But I think the second biggest story of the upcoming season is our non-conference schedule we have in front of us. Tough and strong are probably the 2 words that at least come to my mind. Teams like Fuquay, Terry Sanford, Cardinal Gibbons, Rolesville, and we got Corinth on the schedule as well. Former conference foe there. Unless we forget a home date with those boys from Garner. So you actually pride yourself, Coach, on scheduling these tough non-conference opponents, don't you?
Yeah, I do now. We go 0-6 in conference, and I might be kicking myself. And, to a certain degree, it's a reflection of where the program's grown to. It's hard to get an easy win to schedule you at this point. Yeah. So they're all games that we could win. They're all games that we could lose. Certainly. So for 6 straight games, we're going to have to be on top of it. And the same will be true when we get to conference. So. Turns out it ends up going to help us in the long run because the state, unbeknownst to us, when we made the schedule, went to the max preps rating, which is supposed to have strength of schedule as a factor in it. So
yes, sir.
These teams, whether we win or lose, they're going to be good teams throughout the season, and that should help our strength of schedule out, which will help out in turn our seeding in the playoff if we.
How do you like that? How do you like the max preps coming into play there a little bit?
I don't like it because we don't know the formula.
I agree. It's kind of gray. I mean,
we know the factors that go into the formula, but for example, margin of victory is a factor in it. But at the same time, you don't want to run the score up.
Yeah, 89-2 or something. Yeah.
So we don't know where the cutoff is. If a win, if you keep scoring after you're up 42 points, does that help us?
Right.
Or not? And we don't really know those kind of details about the rankings.
If that's the case, and I agree with you, that's the one thing that comes to my mind is margin of victory. I mean, again, you don't want to run up the score and be on the other end of that. I hope we're not on the other end of that as well, obviously. But on the flip side, that's known going into the season. So, not that it's going to help it per se, but it's not necessarily, hey, a coach taking it out on another team. Hey, look, I'm trying to get a better rating. I'm trying to get a better ranking, that kind of thing.
Right.
So, all right, well, Coach, let's talk a little bit about now the work you guys have put in so far, including a couple of scrimmages, the first being at Panther Creek early last week, followed by the Cleveland Jamboree here at home versus Wilson Hunter. What are your thoughts on these scrimmages and the practices up to this point?
I think the team's done a great job. Obviously we're not perfect yet, but they really seem motivated to be working on the things that they're weak at. So they're, some teams will come in and they can't run the ball very well. And they're like, Coach, let's just throw it more. And that's not how they are. They know they need to do it all. And they're really been open to working on their weaknesses. And I've seen us much improved on defense than we were year past. And the big thing you want to see at a scrimmage, you want to be healthy. You want to know that you have passed the physicality test. That's the hard thing to judge when you're playing yourself.
Right.
The O-line might look real physical, but it might just be that the D-line's soft or vice versa. So when you go up against someone else, you get to see where we stack up that. And we've passed that kind of test. And so we feel like we're ready for the season. We're healthy. At this point last year, we had 7 starters out for the first game because of injury. So we won't have any out unless someone gets hurt this week, knock on wood.
Please.
But so those things, we kind of check those boxes. We're much ahead of where we were this time last year. in the Department of Health.
All right, Coach, have you had a player or two, we're talking about players, have you had a player or two that, again, I know you maybe not necessarily want to single anybody out right now, but a player or two that surprised you, or that you've really said, hey, this is going to be a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been kind of pleased with everybody. I wouldn't say surprised because we have high expectations for everybody, but I don't think there's anyone that's been a disappointment in those scrimmages at all. I think if you want to single somebody out, I think Jonathan Kistner's done a great job of transition from inside linebacker to outside. He's provided a pretty good pass rush and been disruptive out there, and but I think everybody's shown a lot of improvement from last year to this year.
He's shown a lot of leadership out there from what I've seen. Yeah, I definitely have. Okay, speaking of players, just as we did last season on the broadcast, Coach, the plan will be to recognize a few players based on their performance on the field, the practice field, even in the classroom. What are some of the areas you'll be looking at to specify or to stand out this year?
Yeah, so we'll have an offensive player of the game each week, defensive player of the game each week, special teams player of the game, and then a lineman of the week, and then my personal favorite, the program player of the week. And that's a guy that is doing things outside of the football field the way that we expect them to. So in the classroom and in the community, going above and beyond.
That's my favorite part. Absolutely my favorite part. I love the X's and O's, love the wins, love the performance, but you like seeing a player stand up for you outside those white lines and doing what they're supposed to do. All right, well, Coach, the season opener coming up this Friday night. That game is on the road at Rolesville. They finished last season with a record of 4-7 under first-year head coach Wilson Helms. What are some of the things that come to mind with them as you prepare this week?
They're big. They're really big. So we've seen them in person at the scrimmage at Cardinal Gibbons, and one of the reasons you go to scrimmages in person is to kind of get a size idea. It's hard to tell on a screen sometimes. So they're big. They're an aggressive football team. I think they're going to be much improved from what they were last year as far as overall record.
They actually graduated a pretty large number of seniors, around 30 or so, if I'm not mistaken. So do you see them? You said improving. Do you see them still in kind of a rebuilding mode, or reloading, or just improving? Period.
No, I think they got a good amount of talent coming up. They might not have had varsity experience, and they'll be getting that as they play us. So hopefully they don't get it until it doesn't all click until week 2. But you can see that it's coming because I think their JVs were either undefeated or 9-1. So they have the taste for winning and what it takes to do that. So 30 moved out, but they have a lot moving up from that JV team that seem to have a lot of talent and football knowledge.
Sure. What type of offense, defense kind of thing are you looking for from them?
They're a 4-3 base, at least that's what we've seen. And then they're a spread attack on offense. A lot of run pass options and reads. So,
sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah, it does.
So I know you too well, Coach. I know you're not going to show your hand, not that I'm asking you to, but can the Ram fam expect any kind of new wrinkles on either side of the ball, that kind of thing? The formulas worked well.
Yeah, so it'll be the typical Ram offense. We'll still be in spread, and we'll still run it, and we'll still throw it, and do a lot of those things. So.
Put it in end zone.
Yeah, hopefully that's the one part we definitely want to keep consistent from last year. If we can score as many points we did last year, I think with the defensive improvement we'll be pretty good.
Well, that's offense, defense. We also know there's another phase of the game. That's special teams. How are the special teams coming along so far?
They seem to be coming along great. Coach Bozer does a lot of that. Has a lot of enthusiasm for those groups.
Bozer enthusiasm? No, that's not happening.
And then Coach Jacobs, he coordinated the special teams down at Richmond, so he's brought a lot to the table in that department as well. So, hopefully a big improvement in that department. We can create turnovers and create field position. Got 2 great kickers, so it should be on the upswing from where it was last year.
Okay, fans, well, there you have it. This Friday, August 18th, 2017 season gets underway on the road at Rolesville. Kickoff slated for 7 p.m. I'm sure the Rams of Rolesville, again, we can say, we know who's going to win this game. It's going to be the Rams. It's going to be one or the other, right? Hopefully it's the Cleveland Rams. But they're going to be hyped up and ready for their season opener. And so, Coach, I know you'd like to emphasize that the Rams of Cleveland be there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no substitution for people being in the seat screaming. I know school's not in session yet, but it's especially for the student body out there, it's a great time to get together outside of school, do all the things, socialize and see each other up there in North Raleigh.
Absolutely.
Hey Ram fam, Jeff Garner here again. Listen, wanted to touch base with you really quick. We didn't get a chance to talk about this with Coach Riley in this week's edition of Inside Cleveland Rams Football, but it's something that we're so excited about, and we wanted to get the information out to you as soon as we could. Starting this season, we will be live streaming all of the varsity football games, both home and away, starting obviously with this Friday night's game at Rolesville. Of course, we hope you attend the game. This is not to replace you coming to the game by any stretch, because I know I speak for Coach Riley and the rest of the coaching staff. They need you, and the team needs you there in the stands to cheer them on. But just in case you can't make it, we know there's things that come up. We want you to be able to see and support your Cleveland Rams, and so we've made this technology available to you, again, starting this Friday night's game at Rolesville. To get signed up, you simply go to www.nfhsnetwork.com. Again, that's www.nfhsnetwork.com, and purchase one of the subscription levels that they have made available to you. The first is a monthly subscription. It's 30 days of access to watch anything and everything that we stream live for 30 days. The second level is our seasonal level. And again, it's simply just a longer amount of time. It's everything that we stream in a season, for instance, in the fall season, in the winter season, in the spring season. And then finally, it's the annual pass, which, as it sounds to you, it's for the whole entire school year. And so, again, our plans are that we're going to stream multiple events, multiple teams. We'd like to do every team for that matter, but we're starting out with varsity football. We think that's the best way to do it. It gets us out there, gets you guys connected with us, lets you see and kind of test drive, what we're providing for you, and we think you're going to love it. So, and the very best thing about this is not only does it allow you, the Ram fam, to be able to watch live Cleveland Rams football, but those subscription levels I just mentioned, 50% of the cost of those subscription levels comes right back into our pockets, into the Booster Club's pockets, so that we can again continue to support Cleveland Ram athletics. So, not only will you be able to watch the game, you'll be able to support Cleveland athletics with 50% of those subscription levels. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'm going to be the main contact for this program this year. My name's Jeff Garner. I'll have my information here on the screen. You can email me, you can call me. I'll be glad to help you out. So again, I hope you're excited about it as we are. I know I speak for Coach Riley and the rest of the team. We're extremely excited to be able to provide this technology to you. So again, starting this Friday night, the 18th at Rolesville, we'll be live streaming the Rolesville Rams and the Cleveland Rams. So until then, as always, go Rams.